What's up, guys? D-Rock1992 here. The Star Trek franchise has had a lot of memorable movies. There have been a lot of them, more than 10, and the TV shows and all that sort of thing. For this next video, I'm going to be reviewing my first real Star Trek experience. I'm going to be reviewing the 2009 reboot of Star Trek that I watched a couple of days ago. A little bit of information before I get into the plot. Chris Pine is in this movie as Kirk, James T. Kirk. Now, I know a couple of characters in the Star Trek series. There's, James T. Kirk I know about. There's Spock, Live Long and Prosper. There's Sulu. Back in the day, he was played by George Takei, who is known for saying, "Oh my." And William Shatner played James T. Kirk, who was known for pausing, like, at every single word. Whatever. Kind of funny how he did it, but there's a guy named McCoy that I found out about in the movie. Now, in describing the plot of this movie, I'm probably not going to be the most accurate, since I had trouble understanding this movie at some aspects, because I had never really watched Star Trek before. This is really my first big exposure into it, and so that's that pretty much. I'll try the best I can. This movie had a lot of great reviews when it came out. 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. So it did something. Made over $350 million worldwide at the box office. So, a very successful movie. So anyway, this movie essentially starts out with, in the year 2033, something like that, Kirk's father, James T. Kirk's father, he is investigating this this lightning storm type thing from the Romulan species. The assistant to Kirk goes on board the Romulan ship to negotiate with the commander of the Romulan ship. His name is Nero. I think he was in previous Star Wars installments. Nero kills the guy and pretty much wages war on Kirk and everybody else. What adds to this is that Kirk's wife, played by Winona Ryder, Winona Ryder was pregnant with James T. Kirk. And basically, to sum it all up, really, the father sacrifices himself for the good of the other people and for the good of his wife and his son. The autopilot, I guess, on the ship was not working, was malfunctioning, and he stayed on board to crash his ship, and he died as a result of that. So that was the beginning sequence of the movie. Now, there were other sequences. After the opening sequence, I'm going to block the light here, I know. It may get kind of annoying, so I'll use my big head to block it. But anyway, after this opening sequence, we go into the future 20 years in, and we look at Spock growing up and joining the Starfleet Command. We look at Kirk, who is growing up. He's a rebellious young man, gets into a bar fight and meets this guy, Commander Pike, I believe his name is. And he tries to join Starfleet too. Flashback, go into the future 3 years later, and Kirk is under investigation for cheating to try to get into Starfleet. Kirk argues by saying that the rules, the guidelines of this whole thing are geared so that you have to cheat in order to do it. It's an impossible thing in order to get into Starfleet. Then there's an attack on, I believe, Vulcan. And planet Vulcan or something like that. And everybody has to go defend the planet. And Kirk joins in, or Spock and all the other men, they go over to defend the planet. Kirk is told to stay back, but Kirk, being the rebellious teenager that he is, rebellious man, he goes anyway with his assistant, Dr. McCoy, and they go up to Vulcan, and everybody figures out that there's a drill that's going into Vulcan or the Earth or something like that. So they have to stop it. Eventually, they fail to do so because the Vulcan planet is destroyed. Spock's mother dies, and the Romulans earn a victory. Afterwards, Spock and Kirk get into a big argument. Spock removes Kirk from the ship after Kirk tries to start a mutiny. Kirk is exiled, essentially, and he meets up with the older Spock, who actually, the original guy who played Spock in the Star Wars, the original Star Wars 1960 series was a guy named Leonard Nimoy. He plays in this movie as an older version of Spock. The older version of Spock kind of helps Kirk along to try to defeat Nero. He tells a story about how he was unsuccessful in saving the Romulans from destruction. So the Romulans' planet or something like that was destroyed. Nero, a leader of the Romulan clan, he swore revenge because the elder Spock failed to help them. So Nero banishes Spock to this place where Kirk was exiled as well. And the elder Spock has to watch Vulcan be destroyed or something like that. But anyway, Spock and the elder Spock and Kirk, they go to this inventor of sorts, Montgomery Scott, and he helps them try to defeat the Romulans from destroying Earth, basically destroying the Earth and wreaking havoc in space, basically. So eventually, Spock and Kirk reunite. They get back to it, and Spock is actually demotes himself because he's emotionally non-adjusted to fight Kirk, basically. Kirk challenges him to fight, and Spock is emotionally incapable of doing this. So Spock is a type of guy who he uses logic. He doesn't use his own opinions. He just uses the logic that is right there for him. He's that type of intellectual mind. So anyway, they attack the Romulans, and eventually they are successful in defeating the Romulans. Earth is saved. Kirk is declared a hero. He is made first in command. Spock is made the second in command, essentially. McCoy gets rewarded. Everybody gets rewarded. And the elder Spock at the end, pretty much, well, pretty much says, pretty much has this monologue at the end of sorts, and that's the end of the movie. I tried the best to explain as best as I could without looking at the plot. And I look at plots on Wikipedia and all that, but I try not to look at that. If I'm not as accurate, if I'm missing important plot details, please let me know in the video, in the comments below. Basically, I may be wrong. This is really one of the first times I have watched Star Trek. I'm more of a Star Wars fan, but I thought this was a good movie. This was a good exposure, good first exposure to Star Trek. I couldn't understand a lot of it, like I said, because I've never really watched Star Trek before. I caught some of the characters like Kirk and Spock and Sulu. The chick there who Zoe Saldana played, the woman there. It's not clicking for me, but if you have her name, comment down below as well. But I recognized some of the characters, and it was exciting. There was a lot of great battle sequences. It definitely was good. I would have to say that I would give it a 4 out of 5 stars. The only reason I'm doing this, part of it I could not understand, couldn't really comprehend most of it, and some of it. And Star Wars is just superior to Star Trek, in my opinion. I'm a Star Wars guy, basically. But Star Trek, the 2009 edition, was good. Everybody performed their parts well for Star Trek. And so I give this a 4 out of 5 stars. And this is my review. D-Rock 1992, out.